Hello, YouTube. Just thought I'd make another video about subject of animal welfare, animal personhood. Value of suffering in other species and not just humans. Veganism. Some of the arguments against it that I think can be picked apart. I guess one argument often touted is pretty self-interest based. It's a personal choice. It's my choice. I do what I want. This is some personal thing that only affects me and no one else. This contributing to animal torture. Well, obviously it's not something that just affects you. It has a victim at the end of the day. It has a feeling, sentient, sensing, perceiving being. With all the requisite central nervous system and pain receptors. And it is not just a personal matter of personal liberty that does not affect someone. In the same way, using drugs in your own private residence or alcohol is a personal choice. No one else is affected by that. But there are prohibitions on your rights when it comes to being in public and being intoxicated while driving, for example. Then it is not just a personal consumption choice that only harms yourself. You're then putting risk and danger and potential death on others by drunk driving. It's not really a limitation on rights and liberties to restrict or prevent someone from doing some activity that harms another. And I would argue, and it's pretty plain fact, that animal agriculture, factory farming, all this is a gigantic, just violent, torturous, brutal oppression of a innocent animal. For something that is not necessary, that can be lived without, that is actually better for the health anyway if you do not consume. And yeah, sort of the old principles of utilitarianism and John Stuart Mill. Your liberty ends where another's begins. Your rights have a limit. But then, and I don't see how one can make the argument that the animals don't matter, that they're suffering pain and the experiences going on don't matter, that only humans matter. That it is not the ability, it is not consciousness, it is not ability to suffer, it is not the sentient internal experience of a harm, of a negative state, that is what has value and what we should have a ethical obligation to prevent, fight against, not allow to happen, reduce as much as practically and possible, but no, rather just the structure of the DNA that and specific chromosomes that make up human is where the value comes from. Not the suffering, not the experience, just the DNA. I don't really know how the argument can be made that only human suffering matters. And because if you're going to do the whole intelligence as the intelligence and rational thinking skills or language as what makes us have value and more relevance and non-human animals not, there's a problem with the whole, I think Peter Singer makes this point about the marginal cases. Someone who is severely mentally incapacitated is basically has the mind of a child, and you could even talk about infants. Certainly don't have any intelligence. When you think about it, human infants are completely dependent, unable to survive on their own without constant supply of mother's breast milk. They're not contributing anything productive. Like no other mammal on Earth is so incapacitated, is so undeveloped, unneurologically developed. I don't believe. Outside of humans. So, if you're going to make the intelligence is the key measurement here, then human infants would not have value at all, and the whole infinite value of life is just based on faulty reasoning. And you could also make the argument that there could theoretically be this alien race that is supremely intelligent. Its intelligence difference with us would be like us to chimpanzees or something. So then it would be perfectly fine and morally acceptable and justifiable that these beings could breed and farm and cage and slaughter us by the billions and just treat us like, well, the way we treat pigs at the moment. But I don't think many would accept that as a good thing, because then we become the victim, so it's all about us. We can victimize, but no one can victimize us. Another thing I often hear is there can be no ethical consumption under capitalism. That is, vegans in the Western world are not completely cruelty-free because of worker exploitation, and that means it's totally fine to contribute to far greater in numbers and levels of pain and torture, animal exploitation. For some reason, it's like this is just another variation of the nirvana fallacy. Basically saying, and I saw this one post saying like, it's not cruelty free to be vegan, and then someone responded,